Hello everybody, how you doing? This is Kinesiology 234, and this is a presentation regarding setting expectations. Now, in the context of what we've gone over thus far, we've definitely had brought a light to this process and how you have to set expectations with clients on the front end. And it's actually an ongoing process. Now, this will be a presentation that'll go over some of those expectations, but this will not, by any stretch of the imagination, be exhaustive, because what I'm more interested in is you getting yourself kind of wrapped around the concept of there are many different little nuances involved with this process, and there's many different expectations that are both set as well as implied and understood within the relationship between the client and the trainer. Some of them are results, some regarding the workouts, and some are more like transaction oriented. But in this presentation, I want to hit on a couple of those, and we'll definitely foster some conversation in class. So when you take on a client, we've talked about this many times, you're setting a rapport, you're building a relationship, and part of that relationship is having an understanding of expectations and things that must be managed within the relationship. Now, part of that requires good communication, no doubt about it, but also part of it requires a healthy dose of respect, right? This person is hiring you as the perceived expert in your field to help them towards a goal. And I've had people, and I've seen trainers with clients, and you could see that the client basically was just disrespecting that trainer and really didn't appreciate what they brought to the table. And I would urge you to make it a point to be exceptional in what you do. But when in the environment, you have to be exceptional at what you do, and you have to command that type of respect from the person across from you. Now, partially it's implied, right? Because here you are, you're the perceived expert in the field, but you also have to deliver. So I urge you to do that and start early when you start talking expectations. So expectations can come from and be, I should say, include the working relationship, the communication you're going to have when you work together. That could be both verbal, nonverbal. It could be how you communicate when you're not in the training environment. The training plan, what you're looking to accomplish over the next couple of weeks, months, days, etc. What the results are, or what you expect the results to be, I should say. And then the costs associated with the relationship that you're putting together, and what happens if you do have some schedule adjustments. And these are some simple ones, right? When you look at this, you kind of have this client-trainer relationship. And of course, there's a third party in here, right? It's the facility you're training out of, and I didn't put this into the equation just to simplify things, but they also have a bit of an influence on the relationship with your client. And I've talked about that with some of my peers where I've had it, and also some of my peers have had it, where the facility has tried to dictate the relationship with the client, and it just didn't work out well for the facility because many times the client is more beholden to and has more adherence to the actual trainer as opposed to the facility. But with that said, you have this relationship between the client and the trainer, and the client understands that they're going to pay X amount for personal training services, and the trainer understands that they're going to receive X amount or Y amount to provide those services. And usually the facility takes their little slice of that equation. Then the client and the trainer also have an agreement, like they know how long the session is going to be. It's going to be 30 minutes to a half an hour. They also many times will agree upon the number of sessions. Now that's a bit of a moving target, right? Because the time, 30 minutes to an hour, that's usually set in stone. You either buy half-hour sessions or 1-hour sessions. But when you start working with somebody, many times they'll buy a 12-pack, they'll burn through their 12-pack, they like the results, they'll buy another 12-pack. And it becomes this kind of open-ended agreement. And there's a difference between open-ended and closed-ended agreement. And you got to understand that as long as your client is happy, as long as you're providing results, as long as you're being professional, and you're providing a value that is greater than what they're paying, you have a greater likelihood of them sticking around. As soon as you provide poor quality service and you are not helping them get the results that they want, they'll many times just kind of fade away. Or you'll see them personal training with somebody else. So you have to look at this and go, all right, I need to be able to provide a service for either 30 minutes to an hour. We'll set it up where we're going to do 12 sessions to start, or 20 sessions to start, or 10 sessions, whatever that number may be. And then we'll take it from there. And once you get to that point where you get to like session number 8 or so, you'll get to know if you're going to have if you're going to have that client stick around, or if you're going to have to find somebody for that 4:30 time slot, right? And then, like I mentioned earlier, you know the facility is going to take a percentage, and you understand it on both sides of the equation. And I've talked about how with one facility, they were charging more money, but they didn't flow it through the trainer, and so the clients ended up having a bit of a revolt against the facility. And then lastly, and this is an important part, right? The trainer should be qualified to provide the services that are agreed upon, but the understanding by the client is the trainer is qualified to provide those services. And usually that's an implied type of bullet point where the client thinks, well, because the trainer's sitting right there, they are qualified. And you'll get into some facilities where you'll have this person sitting across from a trainer and you just, or across from a client, and you know they're just not qualified to handle the case they're working on with that client. And yet, despite that, you'll have this trainer will build that relationship and keep a client. And it's just interesting because the effect on the front end, whether it's the primacy effect, if you will, or Mandela effect, where uh, the implied message that this person is qualified overrides the fact that they're not. So I'll tell you, when you get into this relationship, understand that they're working on the presumption that you are a qualified trainer, and you better show up and be a qualified trainer to keep that client. So further along with communication, you're going to be in this relationship, and part of the service you provide is the ability to provide open and honest communication to your client. And you don't have to be mean about it. You don't have to be confrontational or just straight out condescending to your client, but you have to be honest with them and you have to have open communication with them, because that is partially what you are providing as a service. And the client understands this, and the client will also understand that on a much bigger picture, you're doing that to help them complete or achieve their goals. Now, on the other side is from a trainer, it is the responsibility of the trainer to provide that guidance and have that honest communication. And it should be delivered in a manner that's both professional and purposeful, much like when we have touch factor when you're working with your hands on a client. The two P's are important, right? It's got to be with purpose, and it's got to be professional. And the communication itself, it's really one of those key parts that I think sometimes gets forgotten is, you have to have the subtleness and the ability to deliver coaching and cueing bullet points to people on a per session basis, on a per rep basis, but also overall in a relationship process on a per week or per month basis, and be able to guide people on a much bigger picture. Other things, communication, how it will be handled outside of the facility will be done through text or email or some other medium. Usually, now it's become so ubiquitous that it just becomes, we text all the time back and forth. But, you'll use it as a tool, and you'll use texting as a tool, and you'll use it as a way to communicate quickly. But as you'll see in a second, there's a bullet point to that. With most relationships that you have with personal training, the client begins a program and they want to achieve a particular goal. And that goal itself will be pretty darn specific. I want to lose weight, I want to fit in a wedding dress, everything we've talked about. But usually it comes with a specific time horizon, right? And so now, as a trainer, the trainer has to be able to take that time horizon and lay out and say, okay, here's how weeks number 1 and 2 will look. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to come in, we're going to work out, we're going to do this, this, and this. By the time we get to weeks number 7 and 8, you're going to be able to look back at weeks 1 and 2 and go, wow, that's my warm up now. And those are the things you try to set expectations on early on in the session. Weeks 1 and 2, you're not coming in to get beat up and have a snot beat out of you, though some trainers really like to do that, and I still to this day don't understand it. It's more about indoctrination and introducing you to the facility. And as we progress through the workouts, when we get to weeks number 7 and 8, oh yeah, I'll be beating up on you, but it's not going to be without providing some kind of base within the earlier weeks. And I'm really interested in, during this time, having you go from the left side of the dumbbell rack up to the right. I'm not going to be too specific in terms of how many pounds you go up, but I want you over this time to get stronger. And you're going to get stronger anyways as a byproduct of becoming more coordinated. But I definitely want to work on strength as we work towards weeks number 7 and 8. Weeks number 1 and 2, not worried too much about it at that point. But as we get into the beefy part of the workouts in weeks number 3 through 6, oh yeah, absolutely. And that's a very real conversation I've had with people, and that's one that you can have as well. And you got to understand that most of your clients will not train forever. So as a result, this open communication that you have with them, being brutally honest, I believe me, I've had clients for multiple years, a decade, for God's sakes. And I have friends who have had clients for 15 years. But that's the rarity, and most clients just do not train forever. So as a result, you have this finite amount of time to help them achieve their goals, and you got to be vested in that process to help them do that. And part of that is understanding the nature of the relationship and knowing that there is a terminal time point, if you will, in the future. With costs, right? And this is sometimes a tough one for newer trainers. There's a financial component to this relationship that has to be outlined for the client. You're not just doing this for the heck of it. You're doing it because you want to make some money. And so you have to set these expectations on the front end. You have to also set some boundaries with your people on the front end. Otherwise, they'll trample all over you. And clients will sometimes get like 3 or 4 sessions in, and they won't take care of paying for a package. You got to chase them down. I still have clients where I train them, and I get to the end of the week, and I send them a reminder to remit. My reminder to remit payment, but I say reminder to remit, and they know, and perhaps it's become this kind of quirky relationship where they wait for that to actually send the money. But early on in our training relationship, I had to do that, otherwise they wouldn't remit. So I had to be all over them. It's kind of weird, like they just want me to ask for it, but I don't care. Personally, it's money. I'm going to ask for it. So to that end, you have to set those expectations and boundaries with your people. And when you're in a fitness facility, many times that is, hey, you're going to buy a package. The more you buy, the more you save. So if you're going to do this 3 days a week, you probably want to go to 20 sessions because it's just going to be cheaper on a per session basis. And most clients will understand that math and will understand that, and they'll purchase sessions on the front end. But as you go through, where it becomes important is when you have clients who have to cancel on you, as you'll see in a second. So you have to be able to set these boundaries, and it's completely in your right to do so, right? You have to have this not only at the table during your initial consultation, but even when you're working with them through their package, if you will, of training sessions, you have to be able to articulate to them, hey, this is number 6 out of 8, or this is number 10 out of 12. We're kind of getting to the end here, and we need to look at re-upping, if you will. And you'll have those conversations with your clients, and you have to be able to explain those things to them. I would urge you to have very open and honest communication with your client regarding expectations on scheduling. And with that, what happens if they cancel day of? And maybe set some boundaries in terms of, okay, we know that you're going to have some scheduled events like vacations and work trips and days off from school where you can't come in, and those will be telegraphed far in advance. But if you have a day where no call, no show me, I'm going to charge you for that session. And quite frankly, when you train with me, 8:30 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, that's your time, and it's nobody else's time. So it's not like we're going to move around our schedule. So that is your time to be here. That's your hour twice a week that we're going to carve out for you, and I fully expect you to be here. Now, if I'm late, you'll hear about it long before I'm actually late, and if I'm not going to be able to be there, you usually know about it long before I can't be there. In the rare case that I am going to be late or something happens, we'll jump off that bridge when we get there. But if I have to stand you up for whatever reason, I definitely will make good on that for you. And that's a conversation I just had a couple weeks ago. And then also you have to come up with what scenarios would cause a no call, no show charge, and really have that communication with your client. And I would say make sure you're consistent, and be consistent with your client as well as all of your clients. So there is no slippage from one client to the other. You have to be able to have those boundaries in place because you are a fitness professional. And as a result, people are paying you for your services. Granted, it's fun, it's enjoyable, and it's what we all like to do in this industry, but you are being paid for providing a service. And I would urge you to not let your clients ever dilute and discount the value of your service, whether it is by paying late, which is in essence prorating the amount that you're receiving for that service. And I would also urge you to set boundaries to let them know the nature of that relationship in terms of what the expectations are. It comes from being a professional in the industry. As you guys work towards this through this class and also get into the industry, you'll find that that's going to be part of the deal. So with that, guys, I'm signing off. Have a good one. Bye.